Welcome to Get the Balance Right, a podcast for creative entrepreneurs who challenge the status quo. I'm your host, Heather Zeitzwolf, CPA. I'm on a mission to help and inspire visionaries to grow their firms with a keen focus on their triple bottom line. Join me for conversations with purpose-driven leaders, business disruptors, CEOs, and renegades in digital media, marketing, advertising, and design. Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Get the Balance Right. I am your host, Heather Zeitzwolf. On today's show, we have a really special guest, filmmaker David Michael Latt. He is one of the co-founders of the Asylum, a film studio that is super prolific. They have produced and distributed hundreds of films, ranging from art house to mockbusters to TV shows like Z Nation and Sharknado. They've really carved out their place in Hollywood by focusing on the type of films that audiences crave. In this interview, we talk about movie trivia, juicy showbiz stories, and the insider scoop on movie production. This is a super fun interview, and David is so nice. It was so nice of him to do this interview with me. All right, enjoy. I am so excited that you're taking time to speak with me on my little podcast, and I'll try to keep this brief, but I have a lot of questions for you. You want to just dive right in?
All yours for 3 minutes, whatever you can do.
Thank you so much for being on my podcast. This is unbelievable.
Oh, this is your podcast? Oh, I need to call my agent. So if you excuse me for a second. No, it's all good. I love being on here. I'm grateful you asked. Thank you for asking.
Of course, we're going to dig into Sharknado at some point in time, but I do want to ask you, how did you start this career? Of course, I went on Wikipedia. It said you started the Asylum in 97, but what was your past before that?
Male prostitution, gigolo stuff, the same as every Hollywood producer. I'm very boring. I have always known that I wanted to make movies since I was 3, really. It comes down to I had a Super 8 camera in my hand. By the time I was 7, I was making short movies, and I just had this kind of singular ambition is to make films. There was a point where I said, make movies or stop the pandemic in the future, like inventing a vaccine for COVID. And I went, I'm going to go make movies. That sounds a lot easier to deal with. Yeah, it's been a very rewarding life, committing to the Church of Filmology, and that's about it. I mean, it is very boring. That is exactly my very short story.
Did you go to film school and then pack your bags and head out to Hollywood?
Packing my bags to Hollywood is about 5 minutes from my house. So I am the rare exception in this town where I actually am from Los Angeles and I'm in this industry, which is very rare. I might be one of maybe 3 people that I know that have done this, made this a career and living in LA. And I have no at the time, no family in the film business either, which is also very bizarre. But to answer your first question, yes, I went to Loyola Marymount. I have a film degree, so I am fully papered. I can do this and yet still get sued. It's pretty amazing. But yes, they gave me a degree to do this, which is bizarre. It's one of those things where I was very ambitious. I did all these very ambitious things. And I think my parents knew that in order for me to graduate college, which was their hopes and dreams for me, they made a bet to me that I would never graduate, which was probably the right thing to do because I graduated simply because I wanted to prove them wrong. Quite frankly, that experience, it did change my life in a sense because I met my partner while going to college, and he's been my partner for almost 30 years. It's one of those things. It had a very positive effect. Otherwise, don't do college.
When you get out of film school, before you started Asylum, did you have to work on films where you're bringing people coffee? How does that all start?
You have to have a natural ability of disconnect with your hubris and your ego to the normal way of things. So I was a millennial before that was cool. I definitely was very entitled or believed that I was very entitled, but I was always producing, always putting together things. I was always good. That being said, I have done every single position on a crew. I enjoy my best times on set. I truly enjoy every part of making a movie. And there's nothing that is more prestigious or not. Being a PA, which I've done, being a boom up, which I've done, being catering, which I've done, is all part of the collective whole. And it's great. That I get to produce is a lot of fun, but I still do a lot of things that when things fall through the cracks, I do. Polish scripts, do visual effects, do editing, whatever it takes. We still have that kind of independent and gung-ho attitude with the company.
That's so cool. Who influenced you in the early ages?
I am old enough where my influences were Spielberg, Coppola, Woody Allen, Scorsese, good old 70s and 80s directors. That would be probably Lucas, these very big blockbuster studio films. That was definitely the inspired moments for me. It wasn't the genre films. It wasn't the low budget stuff. I had a snobby take on B movies at the time. Again, hubris. And in fact, one story I have told before, which is when I was growing up, I just didn't want to be such a crappy genre filmmaker that I put Larry Cohen, who made The Stuff and Q and Bone and The Private Files of J. Edgar Hoover and It's Alive and all these movies as a point of I never want to be that guy. That guy is, I don't want to be that schlocky filmmaker that throws it away. I'm this passionate artist. And fast forward in college, I ended up dating Larry's daughter. And just on one of those things. And she's wonderful, still is wonderful. And I got to know Larry quite well. The stories he would tell, his independence and his spirit and his love of the craft, which I thought wasn't there clearly because he was making $1 million films, not $100 million movies, really opened my eyes to all the different ways of making a movie. And this independent spirit was just so dominant in his life. He was definitely a mentor in that regards because it definitely changed my ways of thinking about things. And to this day now, from like that point forward, I always vowed if I can get to Larry Cohen's career path, I would feel very successful and honored to be in that same place. And I still don't feel like I have, because what he did up until the day he died was to make independent films and the films that he wanted to make and damn everybody else. And he created a career and a fan base from that. He's a lesson of what to do in this business, not what not to do in this business. And so it gave me a bigger appreciation to the other guys, Sam Arkoff, Corman, Henry Hathaway, these independent, low budget guys that did it on their own. I feel excited that I could be invited to the party. I still can't sit at their table, but it's one of those things that it's great. It's just, anyway, so you're talking about mentors. That was an indirect mentor that really changed my focus and view about things.
I love the stuff.
And in It's Alive 3, I actually played an extra in that movie because, again, I was dating Melissa, his daughter, and I visited her on set, and I was making a movie at Loyola at the time, and I'd already pulled an all-nighter, and she's, could you just stay just to the thing? And then Larry's, David, get over here and be I'm really tired. I just don't want to. It would be no problem. Anyways, 20 hours later, I'm still standing as a guard and a judge. I barely could stand up. And anyways, so I was an extra too, in addition to everything else in front of the camera, just doing all different parts.
When you started the Asylum, how did that first come about, and what was your first movie? And I know you organized the Asylum started with 3 people. Is that correct?
And it still has 3. So the Asylum came about like in 96. We incorporated in 97 because I had previously made a movie with my partner. We had made 2 films up to that point. We had made Sorority House Party, which was a romantic, sexy comedy for USA Up All Night. And we made Killers, and we still had day jobs. And within the month of each other, I got fired from my day job and he got fired from his day job. So from there, we basically said, let's just start our own company. We started the Asylum, and he brought in someone from the company that he was fired from, because everyone was let go from that company. It was Sherry, David Romawi, and myself. And we worked out of my partner's apartment for the first 4 years, did everything. Anything that came to the front door, we took those as opportunities and started the company.
Your films are mainly released straight to video or straight to TV. Is that right?
Mainly, although we've had some pretty good theatrical runs on things, and we've had TV series and whatnot. But when we first started, we were doing what's called production services, where someone would hire us to produce a film. That'd be one thing, to manage it. And then about a year into our company, something more unique happened, which is the company that my partner worked for, they were an Australian company and they got bought out by Warner Brothers. So everyone got let go. And the Australian people went back to Australia. We get a call about a year into our company from his boss, who's a big mucky muck in Australia, and said, hey, mate, I got something going on here. I want you to do it. He started a business called First Rights. And what First Rights was, marketing to video stores and
video stores, for your audience who don't know it, we used to sell videotapes and rent them on a daily basis, like Blockbuster. They have it over in Australia. They had a big chain, and they marketed for every month they would release first-time filmmakers movies. And it would be something that chain announced. It was a big deal every month, the 2 or 3 titles. He called us up because he knew my partner and said, look, I'm looking for a US partner for this thing. I have a deal with Hollywood Video, and would you like to do this? It would require that you would have to go to all the film festivals, find movies, and release them, be a distributor, not a production company. All right, we're not gonna say no to anything. We met him in Portland, where Hollywood Video was located, and we struck a deal. And initially, the deal was 2 films every month. They would put it on an end cap, a big kiosk, first-time filmmakers, critically acclaimed art house movies and whatnot. The first 4 years of our company, we released about 300 art house movies. So if you looked at the history of the Asylum, we actually started off in art house films. What happened was, I gave you the end of the story, but during the journey of that, it was a quasi-successful piece of business where I would literally go to all the film festivals, make deals with first-time filmmakers, and release 2 films every month to Hollywood Video. And that did pretty well. We increased to 4 videos and to 6 videos. By the end of it, we had 10 videos a month that we were releasing, which is an obscene amount of movies to be collecting and releasing. And every filmmaker is nuts. We learned that too. They all think the producer and distributors are screwing them, and they're all nuts. They're all, my baby. Something happened in the middle of releasing these art house movies, because the art house movies were palm leaves with critically acclaimed and the floating heads and a lake, and that's look at how important this movie is. Everyone wants an art house movie. About a couple years into it, Hollywood Video said, look, we need some genre films, but we want them to be first-time filmmakers. Could you do it for Halloween? We need some scary movies. So we said, all right, we'll find some scary movies. So we found some scary movies, put them out with the horror and the blood and the knives. Those numbers quadrupled. They were just holy crap, people don't want art house movies. Forget the art house movies. Let's go find genre movies. That was a little more difficult to do, but we did find a bunch. And even if we found an art house movie, instead of it being a floating head and on a lake, we'd still do a campaign where it would be bikini girl with a bazooka and an explosion behind her. And it would still, without the critically acclaimed, and we'd call it, instead of On the Pond of My Life, it would now be called Bitches, 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 or whatever it was. And the numbers would go crazy. And we're like, this is a business. We really quickly learned to genreify what we were doing, and that really the audience was there to watch genre films. And that kind of got us more into the genre business. And as that program was dying, we went to Blockbuster and said, do you want to repeat the success of Hollywood Video? And they went, not really. We don't like the first-time filmmakers, but we do like that you could acquire movies. So we'll give you a 2-picture release schedule every month if you give us genre films, because that's what really does the numbers. Forget the stupid art house crap. And we went, not a problem. It was a problem because we were then competing with other companies like Lionsgate, a medium-sized studio here in Hollywood, where they would offer an MG, a minimum guarantee, to the filmmaker. So they would write a check for $100,000 to someone and say, here you go. We can't give you any money up front, but we'll split the profits. We found that we couldn't find really any movies at that level because Lionsgate just kept going in there and grabbing them. A few months into the Blockbuster deal, we said, look, what if we make the movies for you? What if we get exactly what you want? So if you need a zombie film, if you don't have that in May, it's January now, we'll make it in May. And they went, okay, we don't care where you get it from. As long as if we tell you what we want, you'll go make it. We're like, absolutely, we'll go make it. That's what we did. So rather than acquiring movies, that switched us into a production company, and we started making our own films. And that was super successful because now we didn't have to split the pie with anybody. It wasn't a huge pie to begin with. Now that we owned all the pieces, distribution side and the production side, it definitely made a lot more sense. And that is what built up the company more than anything else. We ended up making 2 films a month to this day. That was 20 years ago. To this day, we still make as a base 2 films a month, and then everything else is on top of that. So we have hundreds of films in our library based on that particular model.
Hey, entrepreneur, are you stressing out over your cash flow? Are you always confused by your bank balance? Well, you know what? You're not alone. Lots of business owners struggle with this, but you don't have to. I'm Heather Zaitzwolf. Besides being a podcast host, I'm also a CPA. I can help you get your cash flow under control so that it's predictable and so you're profitable. Learn how by setting up a discovery call with me now. All you have to do is click the link in the show notes. All right, now back to the show.
And then another significant kind of change that happened about a year into the blockbuster thing, I had wanted to make War of the Worlds. Up to this point, they've been telling us what they want. But I'm like, let's go make War of the Worlds. It's a sci-fi. It's public domain. It's one of my favorite books. Let's go do this. And my partner's like, no, it's getting released by Paramount. It's already getting made. All right, fine. So we shelved it, but I kept rewriting the script. In December of 2004, God, that's old. It's a long time ago. I pushed my partner again. I'm like, would you just ask them if they'll make it? It's just, they're not going to make it. They're not going to do it. They're already getting made by the studios. They don't want to compete. They're going to license themselves. Please just ask them. Okay. Cause he had the relationship with Blockbuster. So he goes to Blockbuster and asks them, and they're like, absolutely. We want to make this movie. We're like, really? Like, absolutely. The Paramount one comes out on May 5th. Could you get it out by then? We're like, yeah. And I'm like, I see you've been writing the script. Didn't tell anybody. Yeah, we can be in production by January. We'll go make it. And the big concern was, what are you going to do when Paramount comes knocking? And the president of Blockbuster said, I'll tell him to F off, that it's not going to affect you. Don't worry about it. And blah, blah, blah. We're like, all right, you'll protect us. Yeah, we're going to protect you. Don't worry about it. So we go and make the film. And sure enough, Paramount comes a knocking. And sure enough, the head of Blockbuster tells them, all right, if you don't want it, because they threatened, said, if you pick up this film, we're not going to give you the real War of the Worlds. And Blockbuster said, fine. In fact, we're not going to take any Paramount product. It was a showdown, and Paramount blinked, and we were able to release the show. And I think to this day, it's been our highest grossing one. And the reason why that changed the trajectory again is because based on the success of doing a film that the studios were doing at the same time, it allowed us to make what we called mockbusters. And that put us into another different category. And to this day, we make mockbusters. We, maybe about 20, 30% of what we do are drafting off of what the studios are doing, so that there's more content out there in the marketplace. And it was just a big event that flipped us and allowed us to find different places to make money, exploit titles, and find an audience.
I know we don't have enough time to really dive into Sharknado, but how did that come about, and how did that kind of change the Asylum?
Like every good Hollywood story, we stumble upwards. We fall down by falling up. That happened because we had a really strong relationship with Sci-Fi at the time, Sci-Fi Channel. And we were producing shows for them, quite a number of them, probably like 30 by that point. We were producing movies for them. And they had probably picked another 100 titles during the course of the years. We had a very lovely relationship with them. We still to this day. In fact, we just got an email from a guy that had left there years ago, but he's on his own, and he's very successful. Anyways, we were having dinner one time, I think at Comic-Con or AFM or one of the markets, one of the big things with them. And as all the conversations kind of go to, is like, what are you doing now? And how could Sci-Fi be a part of it? Or how can we force you to be a part of it? From our point of view. And we said, we have a couple of things going on. One of them is this story called Sharkstorm, which is what our Japanese buyers wanted us to make. Basically, it's a tornado that hits Los Angeles, picks a bunch of sharks, throws them, into the populace, and they have to deal with the sharks. It's a disaster film. And the two execs, they were like, oh my God. We did a film a few years ago called Leprechaun in the Hood, and or Leprechaun 4. And in that movie, there was a character that talks about a sheriff that talks about an incident that happened in the town 100 miles away, and it was horrible. And the incident was called, they said, yes, it was a huge Sharknado that happened, and a lot of people died. And we loved that phrase Sharknado so much that we wanted to make a movie about it. We had no idea what the movie. This plot about Sharkstorm sounds fantastic. Look, we'll get involved. Sci-Fi will get involved if you call it Sharknado, but you can keep your plot, your stupid plot. And we're like, sure, we'll keep Sharknado. We thought it was the dumbest title ever. We're totally not going to keep that title. And but if Sci-Fi wanted to release the Sharknado, fine. We had, by that point, worldwide distribution points that we dealt with internally at our company. We were going to release it as Dark Skies or Sharkstorm or something else. And Sci-Fi could release this Sharknado, whatever. So we went off to make it. And the title was so bad that we couldn't get actors attached to it, because no actor wanted to be involved in the show called Sharknado. So actually a couple of things about Sharknado, little trivia things. That's the first one where we couldn't get anyone until I said, look, call it Dark Skies. And so it sounds like it's more like a drama. And sure enough, we got everyone attached when we called it Dark Skies. But the other part of the little trivia part is that Our first go-to director was a guy named Anthony Ferrante. And Anthony Ferrante had just directed a film for us. And I had known Anthony for about 15 years prior to that. We just keep running into each other in the same circles. He worked on some of our shows and just a super talented, wonderful guy. And we said, hey, look, we have this project called Sharknado. We would love for you to be a part of it and want you to direct it. And he looked at us and said, Sharknado, huh? Yeah. And we think you'd be a great director. He goes, I wrote a script a few years ago called Leprechaun in the Hood. That's my term. I'm the one who wrote Sharknado. And we're like, oh, he's the nicest guy in the world. There was no lawsuit or anything like that. He just thought it was really funny. And we told him the story. Wow, he had no idea. We actually had to sell sci-fi on Anthony. They would not agree to him directing because he was a horror director. He only had done horror. And this was a kind of a campy action. And they were afraid that he wouldn't get the action right. We're like, no, he's the guy. But because it was called Sharknado, we couldn't get any director attached to it. No one wanted to touch it. We offered everybody. No one wanted to do Sharknado. Here we are 3 weeks before we're making the movie. We didn't have any actors and we didn't have the director. In the meantime, Anthony is storyboarding everything. I got this. I'm doing it. And we pitched him again. We said, look, we have nobody, but we're shooting in 3 weeks. Will you please approve Anthony? And he's been the director for all 6 Sharknados and all around great guy. And so those are your 2 trivia points on Sharknado.
Sharknado, I think it's a great title. Obviously, it ended up being a great title. You have other really great titles. You have a lot of shark movies, the 2-headed shark, then a 3-headed. Now it's up to, I think, 5 heads.
Now I think 6 is where we're at.
I love some of these taglines. Don't mix with the 6. Sharknado 5, make America bait again. And the apocalypse has teeth. Who comes up with these taglines? These are awesome taglines.
So when it comes to Sharknado, it's definitely by committee. Everything else is done internally. Sharknado was the first one we had. But after that, when Sci-Fi really reached in and grabbed on Sharknado, it was the marketing teams and test marketing. And it was the real, we're going to really, build this elephant, camel, crazy contraption in order to figure out how to market this thing. At that point, it just became this beast. Specifically on that would definitely make America baiting. It would definitely be Sci-Fi. It wouldn't be something I would have done. And by the way, your other little bit of trivia, which did make some news, is the reason why you have Trump is because of me, because of my company. So you are welcome, world. Probably not to. No, what happened was in number 3, I think. Yeah, 3. We had a part to play the president. And Ian Ziering had just done Celebrity Apprentice. And so he said, do you guys want Donald Trump? I could probably get Donald to do it. And we're like, yeah, that'd be great. So go see if he'll do it. He called him up and Donald said, absolutely, he'll do it. He'll play the president for Sharknado 3. And then we had to deal with his attorney, Michael Cohen, and who I'm not saying he deserves to be in prison, but he's not a nice guy. He definitely was the bulldog. And at a certain point, even though Don already agreed, he was radio silent. And so we're getting closer and closer to the production date. And we're calling up his Michael Cohen. We're trying to find out what's going on. Finally, they get back to us and they basically said, look, Donald's actually thinking about now running for president. And so we don't think this is a good move for him. So we're going to say no to everything. We're like, okay, that happens. It's fine. So we went to our plan B, which was Mark Cuban. And Mark Cuban, totally different experience. Mark Cuban, nicest guy in the world. He has no people surrounding him. It's just Mark Cuban. You want him, you call him on a cell, you're dealing with him. And he knows what's up and what everything is. He wants the script. He wants this. Anyway, it's just a whole different experience. But once we got him to come on board, Sci-Fi put about a press release out saying Mark Cuban's playing the president. We get this extraordinarily angry phone call from Cohen going, what is this we're reading that Mark Cuban is playing the president? We told you that Donald Trump is playing the president. And we're like, no, you said he's running for president. He's not going to be in our movies president. He's going to be president and you're going to fire Mark Cuban or we're going to destroy you. You're never going to make another Sharknado. We're going to call up the head of NBC. We're going to make sure that you guys never work in this town again. Blah, blah, blah. Like, okay, calm down. What have we made him the mayor? He is not going to be a stupid mayor. More colorful language. Okay, look, this is Sharknado. What have we made him emperor of the world? It doesn't matter. Okay? If he wants to be in Sharknado, we'll figure it out. He's not going to do that. You need to be the president or he's not going to do anything. And if he's not going to be president, we're going to sue you. We're going to make sure you're not going to. Again, it's like, okay, sue us. Have fun. We'll catch you later. We'll see you in the courthouse. That's our Donald Trump experience. So there you go. You're welcome.
Hey there, this is Heather. I hope you're enjoying the podcast. And if you are, if you wouldn't mind, please hit the subscribe button now. That way you'll never miss an episode. All right, now back to the podcast. One of the things that I love about your movies is not just the movie, but it's the previews. When you'd rent one of your movies, you'd get a slew of previews for your other movies, and it was so fun to watch. That was probably like the best part of the DVD. So now that you can't rent movies like that, what happened to all your ads? Like, how do people see those ads? You still produce those wonderful ads?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And I don't have a great answer for you. I know that we have a YouTube channel that has our trailers. And I know that our website, theasylum.cc, has trailers of every movie. But you have to know these movies. You have to know what's coming out. And you're right. I don't necessarily have a great answer for you because it's not really being shown anywhere else. They're used internally for buyers, for businesses, so that we can sell the content of the movie so the buyer doesn't have to watch the whole damn thing. But we have very good trailer editors in-house, and they do a fantastic job. And you bring up a good point. So we'll have to figure that one out because I think it does get lost in the translation that people do like to see the trailers. And they're fun to watch.
They are fun to watch.
I will tell you, there's my favorite trailer story is we did a dragon movie, which was billed as a family-friendly movie. And my partner, who has a very odd sense of taste on things at times, included a movie trailer called Freak Show on it. Now, Freak Show is a modern adaptation of a film that was made by Todd Browning called Freaks. So it is a very disturbing look at kind of sideshow performers, which is not easy to do modern times because sideshow performers, most of those are diseases that were fixed by this point. So very interesting. Anyways, that's a whole other casting issue. But this trailer it was probably a red band trailer. People were getting tortured in the trailer in a very horrible way. The last part of someone's tongue is getting cut off, and it's in the trailer. It's a visual nightmare. I remember telling him we can't put this on this movie because it's a kid's movie. No, don't worry, it'll be fine. Anyways, the letters we got from parents, like, how could you put this? I will never watch an Asylum movie again. This was absolutely just uncalled for. And it was true because the kids are putting in there, and what's this movie? And they look at the trailer and they'll give them nightmares. I still have nightmares. Anyways, we never did that again, thankfully.
I think the kids secretly love those previews.
Oh, not this one. If you ever get a chance to see it, you'll just think, it's so violent. It's horrible, but I love the film. I mean, it is a film that I really stand behind, but the trailers, definitely not. I didn't let my kids watch Sharknado until they were older. We did a TV series called Z Nation. I wouldn't let them watch it. I don't think my youngest has even seen it because it's so gory. It's very gory.
If you can't do previews anymore, how do you promote your films? Do people, I understand if you go to a video store, you'd see them on display. So now you've got to grab people's attention when they're downloading movies.
It is a challenge that all independents have to reconcile with and figure out. And I don't know if we've done a great job with it. We're a little bit luckier than most. We have a track record. We have a brand, The Asylum. People know The Asylum, whether it's art house movies or B-movie horror or mockbusters or Lifetime or BET or Christmas movies, whatever it is. There is a fan base for The Asylum and they will watch our movies. It's not enough. We need to push it further. We are trying to expand in different ways on those AVOD services so that we stand out a little bit more, even though we tend to be within the top 10 of these AVOD services, which is great because they have hundreds of channels and we're like in the top 10 every month, which is great. But you're right. At a certain point, we're not going to be. And we have to make sure that people are aware of it. We've never had a marketing team at the company. We've never done publicity. We don't have a publicity department. We don't have a marketing department. It's all internal. It's mostly my partner who handles it, who's, I think, genius at this stuff, but I think we trip into it and there should be a little more coordination with trying to push it out there. But when the numbers are consistently good, it's like, how much more time and resources do you have to push it even further? I'm sure we're doing things that I'm not aware of since I bury my head in the sand and do production most of the time. I get it. And I think we need to do better in those. I don't know. I don't know how people know about it. You have to know the title in order to search for a title. So how do you get people to know the title?
Doing the mockbusters, I guess if people are searching for one movie, they find yours and they're like, ooh, this looks really good.
Not always. The titles aren't always the same. So they'll be close, but not the same. It used to be easy when you're at the video store, you could see the titles. But yeah, and then we used to stack the deck a little bit on these video on demand services where Americans are very lazy. We knew going in from people we talked to that if they don't see you in the first couple page runs, so if there's through the alphabet, the 26 letters of the alphabet, and you're calling yourself Mountain Men, they're never going to see it. No one's going to ever see that title. So if you name it Five-Headed Shark Attack and put a 5 in the front, that's going to be at the top of the list. Those people will see it a lot quicker and want to see it and just lose interest after B's or C's. That served us really well for a very long time until the studios came in and said, time out, the independents are making too much money and they're taking our pie. So we want you to forbid studios like the Asylum to use numbers in their titles. So we were banned from putting numbers in titles, and therefore we had to name up something in the A's or B's, but even then our numbers plummeted. And then the studios said, no, it can't be an A or a B. We're pushing in even further. The numbers that if we would have made $100,000 on a movie 5 years ago for that title, it's now maybe $500. It's like that dramatic. It's like insanely horrible because you have to know where the title is. You have to know, oh, they released a film called The Killer Within. And I need to know to go to the K and find Killer Within. And you won't know it. It's tough out there.
If someone went to search for one movie, then it's, you might like these.
These are really sophisticated algorithms that those services know what you like. And sometimes our shows will come up and sometimes they won't. I think on Tubi, Titanic 2 is one of their biggest titles. And so I'm sure if Titanic 2, which stays up at a certain level on their platform of titles that you must watch, I'm sure other of our titles show up too. If you like that one, you're going to like these crappy movies as well. Yes, there's an algorithm that guesses, but I don't try to understand it because it's definitely a math problem that I don't get. And I'm sure if I figured it's like, how do you know that Sharknado is going to do well? I have no idea. And no one does.
Now you have a channel, the Asylum movie channel. Is that available? Like, how do you get that?
The Asylum, there are a lot of what's called AVOD services out there, which are advertising video on demand services. Now, this is a whole different department at our company. We basically have a channel on all these platforms, Tubi, Pluto, Vudu, Roku, very odd sounding names that you get with your smart television or a different way of getting about it. The easiest part about these is that there's an Asylum channel, just like there's ABC, NBC, CNN, Asylum. You can watch our movies with commercials and whatnot. Some of these services do not have a channel, but have Asylum content. So they'll have a few hundred of our movies and you could watch, if you type in Five-Headed Shark Attack, you could probably watch it right there. It just depends on what service you have, and some are better than others, but it is definitely this amazing opportunity for a company like ours that has a lot of library product, stuff in the vault that just sits there and gets dusty, especially when the market, the home video market, the DVDs, the video, all that stuff is gone now. What's taken up are these other kind of big channels, Tubi or Vudu or Roku and whatnot, that we can now take our library and monetize it in a way that we've never been able to do before. And it's been great. It allowed us to keep the doors open during the pandemic and still keep it open. We have about 20 plus employees and have for years. No one's been furloughed. Everyone still has their insurance. Everyone still has their 401k. And I'm very proud of that. I think we even gave raises this year too, which is weird. It's been a lucky accident to have this library as well. And there's not a lot of company like ours where we own the content 100%. So it's easy for us to place it. We're doing well and it's just getting better. The numbers are getting better. People stay at home now. So they're watching more of this stuff and we're producing. Over the course of this pandemic, we're on our 9th movie. We started at the end of May. Yeah, it's funny because you hear, oh my gosh, they're starting to make movies. We've been making movies for months now. And we keep it COVID safe. It definitely stresses me out. We have the corporate side. Those guys are all taken care of. But the people that I deal with on a one-on-one, because I deal with production, are mostly freelance, artists. It is very difficult to talk to a friend that's my age and they're freaking out because they have nothing saved. They saved a little bit, but not for 7 months of unemployment. If I'm going to lose my house, I can't afford the food, my kids, all this stuff stacks up. And it's okay. Let's try and get back to production. Let's try and do this thing, but we got to do it right. We got to be safe. We got to make sure that, people follow the rules, and we keep really strict rules, on the set with the masking and the social distance. COVID officers, I got COVID compliant, so I can be on set and I can wag my finger and tell people, no, you have to do this and that. But we're trying to keep the doors open and trying to keep our friends not becoming homeless. And I guess we really want to be lazy about it or mean about it. We can just deal with the library stuff and on those AVOD services and not deal with production. We could make that our life in the next year and hold our breaths. But I think as a company, my 2 other partners and I said, this is probably the best course to go down. But it's not easy. It's stressful. That's for sure.
Do you think you're going to do a pandemic movie, or has that just been so overdone this year?
Our first few movies, we wanted to keep the pandemic theme in there because some of the people were wearing masks and because we would allow the actors to wear masks. Now no one wants to wear, masks on camera. So we have to even made a couple of Christmas movies and you can't have people wearing masks at Christmas. So the first few movies we made this year had a touch of pandemic storyline in there, whether it works or not.
On your streaming channel, can you get the art house films as well?
Some of them that we held on to, that the filmmakers, there's nothing I can do with it. So just keep it in your library. Most of them gave back because, again, most of the filmmakers, my partner would, if the film didn't make money, he'd still say, let's give them some money. I'm like, but the film didn't make money. He said, yeah, but they spent all their money and they mortgaged their house. Let's just figure it out. We'll make it up somehow. And yet those filmmakers will still say you're screwing us out of it. There's no way that you didn't make $20 million on my video release and then start getting aggressive. You're lying on the books. Yeah, we're lying to money that you didn't make. So the drama is just too much.
Ones that are released for different TV channels. So you sci-fi, and then you said Lifetime. You did Lifetime movies?
We've done about 50 Lifetime movies. Yeah.
Wow.
They're fun. In fact, we're making one right now. As we speak.
One of my guilty pleasures is Lifetime movies.
We've done a lot for Lifetime. We've made a whole bunch of Christmas movies for Ion, Hallmark, TV One. We've done a lot of thrillers for them. BET, we made a Christmas movie. Yeah, we have good relationships with a lot of them. So
if you do a film with one of these other channels, can you release those on your streaming channel?
Yeah, it depends on each contract's a little bit different. But usually have them in windows. And again, because we own our own distribution angle and we have output deals all over the world, we usually build it within the contract where Lifetime or whoever could air it for a certain amount of time. And then we get the rights back and can air it the way we want to. That's the normal, but there's always nuances. There's always, we need it for Lifetime International, or we need it for SPOT only, or we need it for this. But for the most part, there's always, you hold back some money. The budgets aren't great. They're not huge. So you need to make them for a certain amount and then be able to exploit it out there in the world in different ways. Lifetime isn't going to write us a check for 100% of the film. They're not going to say, here, and we just want it for Lifetime. That's not going to happen. So you have to always piecemeal it and make sure you can sell in this territory or that territory and go, okay, here's the total of how much we're going to make. So this is how much you're going to make.
Wow. Okay. This is another just random question, but I'm real curious. When you build effects for something, do you reuse props or different types of special effects, or is that just not done?
I don't know how the real world works, but for us, there's props that we use for every movie. We have a whole prop house of guns and weapons and sci-fi things and monitors, and they're always reused. We have our own equipment, camera equipment, lighting equipment that we use. And then visual effects wise, yes, that's the big problem because a lot of these shows have a lot of visual effects. So you don't want to reuse shots that were in a previous movie. So you want to change them up a little bit. Doesn't always work out that way, but we have a phenomenal effects team. It's 4 people in the room, and then they usually add another 3 or 4 freelance for each movie. Some of them have won multiple awards, Emmys and whatnot, and they're amazing. Yeah, I marvel at the quality work that they churn out. If people knew how quickly we turn these things around, they'd just be floored. It's how little we make them and how quickly we turn around. I think it would just stop you in your tracks, because I think what we deliver is a good, entertaining movie that doesn't look like they just did widgets and did it for the cheapest amount. I think everyone put in their all for every time we go and make a film.
What if people are interested in sending in screenplays? Do you accept those or no?
The short answer is no, but the longer answer is maybe, because the way that the Asylum works is that we don't grab product that's already been produced, written. Basically, our buyer, like Lifetime, will say, okay, we want to have a woman in peril, and she's a teacher, and there's a student, and the student kills it. They'll be very specific with what they want. Even if we said, we have a better script about a nanny who's having an affair, someone dies, we don't care. We want this show. This is the same model we did with Blockbuster and everything else. It's just, they tell us what we want, what they want, and then we go and make it. The short answer is no, because we're never going to really take the other script that comes in unsolicited and pitch it to Lifetime. It's just not going to happen. Or anywhere else. I'm picking on Lifetime, but it's all of them that we deal the same way. Where it's a little helpful is that if this is really your life and you're a great writer, all right, we'll read it so that in the future, when we have something that feels like it's going to fit in that space, we can turn around and go, oh, that's the person that could write this thing. And then we could have that conversation. We've done that many times. but it's never really because of the script that you send.
I see. So really, all your films are just based on demand.
The other real part is that we've never lost money on a movie because we know how much the buyer's going to buy it for, and we know how much we have to make it for. And we make it for more than what the buyer's going to buy it for, we're screwed. It's my job to make sure that we don't make it for more than what they're going to buy it for. And it's specifically because they tell us what they want. If we didn't make what they wanted, then we're in trouble.
Wow. You got it all figured out. It's a perfect system.
It's a really good system. It's worked so far, and it's kept our doors open. If you look in Hollywood, there are very few companies that have lasted as long as we have. And it's not without its own drama of how we survive in the prostitution and the drug smuggling, but it makes for a good story, at least.
David, thank you so much for being on my podcast. I really appreciate it.
I appreciated it more. I had fun. Is that it? I have 5 more hours. Thank you. It's great to see you. I don't think your hair is a different color, though.
My hair is always changing color.
It's good to see you in any color hair.
Well, thank you so much. And now I'll let you get back to making movies. Hey, this is Heather. Thanks so much for listening to the podcast. If you found value in the show, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a rating on iTunes, or just simply tell a friend about it. And if you're interested in learning more about my profit advising and coaching, please set up a discovery call by using the link in the show notes. All right, thanks so much and see you next time.